Hi, and Gabby. Hey, look at my bun. Outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. I didn't even mean to hide it on purpose, but thank God I am. But anyways, I'm going to talk about my version of sleep training. I am not medicated. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not trying to be. I'm literally just saying shit that worked for me and adjusting it to my own life, which I think all parenting should be. And I know everyone's like, well, you got a sleep trainer, you don't. No, you can mix that shit, okay? So basically what I did was took the science behind sleep training and my weak ass heart, let alone how I feel about snuggling our babes, even when they're older, and pushed them together. I joined a bunch of sleep study groups, followed a bunch of Instagram or sleep training groups, followed a bunch of people on Instagram, and did my own research and talked to my mom friends. So my eldest, sleep was absolutely horrible. He was breastfed. I was exclusively pumped for almost a year. And for the first few years of life, he was a terrible sleeper. It was now realized a lot to do with what I was doing. But eventually he just learned to sleep, So just throwing that out there that if you don't want to sleep train, that's totally fine. Eventually they do figure it out. And I was doing all the wrong things and he still eventually figured it out. It just takes a hell of a lot longer. And so this time around with the twins, with my postpartum depression, came home from my mom's and it got better. And then we hit the 6-month sleep regression and T started coming and it was just, I was at my wit's end. So I had to figure something out. And so that's where all of this kind of started for me. And I was the stay-at-home mom and the one that had to, do most overnights. And my husband was helping. But it was just something had to change because it was horrible. It was horrible going on at home. And so I literally couldn't take it anymore. So I think that when and your environment are kind of key factors to starting anything to do with sleep training. Because at that point, nothing else mattered. I was ready. I just needed to kind of get myself in the mindset of doing this. But I physically, as their mom, was ready. They were physically ready. And I will say that if I tried to do it any time before 6 months, when they really started eating a decent amount of food on their own outside of bottles and the colic got better, I wouldn't have been able to do it. Trying to do this with colic, if you have kids that have medical issues, if you're still having formula issues, diaper allergies, whatever it may be. My cat is literally scratching the floor for his water. But anyways, anything else, sleep training is gonna be way too much all at once. You know what I mean? You gotta deal with these outside factors before you can go to sleep training because sleep training is such a huge adjustment. And that's why they're so intense about doing it as a very, very newborn. But every baby's different. What they go through in the beginning of life is different. What you go through as a parent at the beginning of their life is different. And don't feel guilt about that. You're doing the best that you can. This is the hardest 6 months of one's entire life, and repeated multiple times when you have multiple kids. And so, but what I found that worked, that I slowly added in, and I mean fucking slowly. The only thing that I dove in right away was their environment. So I really got blackout curtains, made sure there was absolutely no light in the room, and actually brought it to darkness where I physically, even right now, cannot see. Sorry, David's here. Okay, had to stop the eldest from. Had to get my eldest together. He started being so loud. But anyways, so the first thing I did, which I would recommend anyone, is the environment. Completely blacking out their room. They physically, mentally don't need light. That's just in our brain. And that's kind of a learned behavior in toddlerhood when they're going through emotions and things like that. And that's where stranger danger comes in. And when they really start to process fear, that's when the scared of darkness happens. Which I just want to let everyone know as well that yes, if you have a trauma-filled house, that can make things worse. Yes, if you're not understanding of that, that can make things worse. These kids and pets, obviously this is going to be my blogger lifestyle. Oh my god. Anyways, but these things, they all play a role. So, blacking out their room, making it completely dark, taking out all night. I had someone tell me about red light, but I'll be honest, I don't When I took that out, the light out, and made it completely pitch black, it made a huge difference. And what I used based on an Instagram was an electric candle, and it's like super dim, but you're still able to like see what you need to do. That's what I would bring in the room, and that's what we have right now to be able to see stuff in the room. And then I have a sound machine that wasn't that loud, and I have my phone, and on my phone I found like the loudest rain sounds. And I tried white sound, I tried ocean, but it seemed like rain sounds are best. So you really just need to find like a sound that's like blaring of outside noises, so they really are only hearing the sound, which really helps because they can be distracted very easily by light and noise when they're sleeping, especially during the day, which naps are the hardest time because obviously they need to figure that out. But even at night, like if you have other kids, animals, it's a really good idea to make it very loud. Have multiple machines, have a speaker. I am actually in the process of getting them a speaker because right now we're kind of going through with our naps now that we have our nighttime adjustment. But either way, make that, you want some kind of like sound like that. Fan sound, hair dryer. They have endless amounts of YouTubes that have those that literally last like 12 hours. Like it's not like you have to make it cycle. No, it will just stay on. And I highly recommend, which we did, is like if you're going that route and you have like a phone or a tablet or something in there, or like connected to a speaker, make a playlist of multiple, even if they're multiple 12-hour, multiple 24-hour, even so, like make it literally last a week, because there's nothing worse than in the middle of the night them waking up because their sound stuff turned off, which happened to me literally last night. And so, whatever, error can happen, and that is something that happens. And same thing with light coming in once they get used to it. Like, it's just the way it is. But yes, those things, sound and light, huge difference. And then putting them in a sleep sack. Now that I'm, 3 months deep into doing this, I thought it was this specific Zippity sleep sack that I've now realized is a fake from Instagram. But I've been putting them in their sleeveless ones recently, and it makes zero difference for their sleep overnight, what sleep sack they wear. The biggest thing is temperature. It's the temperature of the room and how hot they are. You really have to figure out what kind of baby you are. They say between 68 and 74, but my twins don't like to be cold, but they don't like to be super hot. But they really, really don't like to be cold at all. So they do like it on the hotter end in there. And so I'm either layering them properly, like a super warm jammy, and then their sleep sack, and keeping it, a tad bit cooler in the room. But I put a heater in there because I cannot control the heat in their room. Our, like, thermometer for the whole house heat is out in the living room. And it just wasn't enough. So I had to put a small heater, like office room heater in there. And that's how I control it. It can be a little annoying, but I luckily have a monitor that literally tells me the temperature. And I think that's very smart, to be honest with you. And you want a good monitor. A video monitor is kind of ideal. And I will say you can find a good amount of them even on Marketplace for really cheap. So like even if you're limited income, like it's worth it because then you're looking at them versus like hearing a noise and immediately coming in. But yeah, those are the instant changes I made, was setting up their room and making sure their bed was how it should be. How many times can my kids distract me? Anyways, but yeah, it's not what you're putting on them. It's how you can get their temperature correct. Some people get thicker sleep sacks so they don't have to worry about the temperature. Some people dress them in really warm jammies and a warm sleep sack. It's just about figuring out what temperature your kids like, trial and error, and finding a sleep sack. It's not necessarily the sleep sack. It's like you got to make one or the other. You got to make sure their temperature is what they want it to be, and they will sleep longer because of it. Because temperature is another reason for them to wake up outside of the normal, things that they are. And I tried sleeping diapers. Did not make a huge difference for me. I will be honest. It's just kind of the kid will eventually learn to hold their urine better. And like even now, they pee through stuff constantly because they don't pee as much overnight. And then they'll wake up sometime between 2 and 4 or right when they wake up during the morning at 5:30 and they're completely soaked with pee because, they just pee a bunch. It's just a part of life. And then another thing that I did was set up a more realistic routine for nap and bedtime. Now, for me, I can't get away of doing bath time every night because of our colic. We did that and it really soothed them. So now I'm kind of stuck doing bath time for the nighttime routine. So I do bath time, get them all dressed. And then before the bath, though, I do what I do for nap, which we have curtains and I close all the curtains, turn all the lights off, and on the screen I put some sort of sensory video. And I can try to do that between 15 and 20 minutes before it's time for them to go to sleep. And that seems to really dim them down. And I also do that for nap time. And it really doesn't matter what you do. As long as it's consistently the same every single time. And you're not going from like an annoying loud activity, whether it's a screen or just in stuff, and super bright, and try to make the lights go down, try to make the noise go down, the vibe go down, to chill. And then get them ready. And then I'll put their sleep sacks on, make sure they have a fresh diaper. Now, this is controversial. I don't really care. I'm a twin mom. Apparently, I get like a thing. I would have done this with my singleton. I don't care what people say. They have fallen asleep with a bottle their whole lives, and I don't feel ready. I don't feel that they're ready to sleep without it. So what we do and what's made a difference is then after we, got this all settled, we used to give them their bottles out in the living room, and it caused a lot of issues with my oldest. It caused a lot of issues because I have a million animals making all these noises. And so I needed to get into their room. And so that was the next adjustment once all of these things were settled. And ultimately we decided to prop them with their bottles in there once they were ready, watch them from the monitor. When they're done, we go in, we burp them, put them down. In the beginning, it was a lot of rocking because that's what they were used to. But as time has gone on, that rocking has been minimal. And they really just kind of fall asleep. I burp them because they are terrible about if they have a burp. They need to be woken up. They're just not burping on their own yet, which, whatever, that can happen. It's, again, something you'll learn about your child. And I do everything in my power. And there's still times where I can't get them to burp, and 30 minutes later they wake up. It happens for nap time and makes me want to fucking die in a hole, so I get it. But then I put them down, and they have slowly been able to sleep so much better. And once we really got that adjusted and that sleep kind of like schedule, and then putting themselves down like that, but with minimal rocking, and then, it kind of worked itself out. And then what I started to do during middle of the night wakes is, instead of sitting there and rocking them until I really felt confident that they were fully asleep, I kind of do the same, give them their bottle, make sure the diaper's wet. If it's not super saturated, I kind of avoided it till the next, your adjustment, your kid on that. My kids were able to adjust to that, to be able to go back to sleep. But if you think they're not going to sleep well because they have a wet diaper, change that diaper right away before you do the bottle. Give them their bottle, try to burp them, and then within 5 minutes, if they're not burping, I'm immediately putting them back in there. I will say within maybe a week, they really started to be able to put themselves down in the middle of the night like that. They didn't need me to rock them. They didn't need me to do anything. We have our moments here and there, but it's very few and far between. Naps are a pain in the ass. Putting them down for a nap is really not the problem. It's kind of getting them to stay in the nap. And it's so hit or miss. So the biggest thing outside of, these are all the big changes that we made. And then learning about wake periods. You need to Google your child's age, find out what their wake periods should really be around, and nobody's like they should be up for 3 hours. They're like 2.5 hours to 3 hours and 15 minutes. And so what that means is the time they woke up, say it's 5:30, they should be asleep by 3.5 hours later, like my current twins right now. So their first nap, they should be asleep for by 9 o'clock. So however long it takes your kid to go to sleep, in the beginning, I put them down 30 minutes before their wake period. Now, 15 minutes because of all of the adjustments helping them out. That gives them their time to drink their bottle. If they need to get burped and if they need to get rocked a little bit, we have that time. And I'm also doing this based off the max time period. I will not let them go down any sooner than the minimum wake period that they are allowed, which right now is like 3 hours. But I'll make sure they're asleep by 3.5 hours. Because if not, you're going to get overtired. And overtired, there's no coming back from it. There's no quick, easy fix. It's just a hot fucking mess to put your kids to bed. And there's nothing you can do about it. But you don't want them so untired that they're not going to sleep a good amount. Which has helped in naps. Now, when I made all these changes, and it's the same, like every baby is different, just look it up. And there's an average guess on how long your baby is napping. My twins have never been able to make it on those nap things. They've always been terrible nappers. They're better now than they have ever been because of the wake periods, but it comes with adjustments. Now, this is something, when we got all adjusted, and they really got adjusted to this, which was about a month ago. And their sleep got better overnight. They were putting themselves to sleep overnight, quicker than right after the bottle. Putting them to bed was easier. Wake periods were figuring out. They were waking up at 4:30. And I could not change that for the life of me. But what I found out is that it was a time period to go from 3 naps to 2 naps. So I made that adjustment first. Then I pushed which helped with naps immensely. It was not 20 minutes. These were now at least an hour. Switching to 2 hours. And I will say that period sucks because the longer they're waking up during those wake periods, which you have to force with 2 hours or 2 naps, it was not a good time that last, anywhere between, usually the last hour for the first couple days. And then as time got on, it got better and better. But, then I adjusted the wake time because my kids are always early risers, but 4 a.m. is stupid. And if they woke up between 3 and 3:30, they're up for the day. And that's not going to happen when I have a 9-year-old that doesn't go to bed until 9:30. Like, no. So what you're supposed to do is put them down for their first nap as close to the desired wake time's first nap. My desired wake time was 5:30. Between 8:30 and 9 is when they should be taking their first nap, even if they woke up at 4. I eased into this wake period by adding 15 minutes. So they woke up at 4:30. I got them used to 2 naps. So I got them used to going to bed between 7:30 and 8 for their first nap. Because it was a 2 nap wake period, which is between 2 hours and 45 minutes and 3.5 hours. I have personally found around 3 hours is how much they can handle, especially at that time. So instead of a 3-hour wake period, the next day would be 3 hours and 15 minutes, 3 hours and 30 minutes. Just keep pushing it. And if the next day they can't go past 3 hours and 15 minutes, that's okay. But don't ever go less. Don't go back to 3 hours. Stay with 3 hours and 15 minutes, no matter how terrible those 15 minutes are. And then add more. Try your best to add more the next day, and keep going and going and going. And it did work itself out. They now consistently wake up at 5:30. So now that we've done all of that, which is why I'm making the video, because now all of these things have happened quickly, and well, not quickly, over 2 months, almost 3 months now. It's really been about 2 months because around Christmas is really when I started. We've been through all of that though. Our nap time, we're down to 2 naps. We have great morning wake time. They sleep 12 hours at night. Due to their naps, I can never seem to make them have a longer wake period during the 12 hours. They go to bed between 5:30 and 6, and they wake up at 5:30 almost on the dot with maybe 1 or 2 wake-ups. Andrew's been having struggles, but I think that's just because of stuff, teeth and stuff, and growing. But right now we're going through it with the naps. And they are wanting to go to sleep back at 3 hours. And because of us waiting those longer wake periods, I think to get them to nap better, I kind of have to force the 3.5 hours because they just don't nap very well. So today, including the past 3 days actually, which if it happens more than a day, it probably is going to become a pattern. And especially if it's happening 3 to 5 days in a row, it's a pattern and you probably need to adjust something. And, they really should be sleeping between 14 and 15 hours in a 24-hour period. Something else we need to look into. And 12 hours at night. I respect they're not going to take 2-hour naps. That's not going to happen, especially because they are in their bedroom from 12 to 12. They just wake up for a diaper change or bottle, and they want to go back to bed and go immediately back in there. They need an hour nap, at least for both of them. They at least need an hour and a half. Hour and a half would be greater. So what I plan to do is just force that they can't go to bed any earlier than 3.5 hours and see how that works out for my naps. Because hopefully, I'm thinking they're tired, but they're just not tired enough for a good nap. And it just affects them. You can tell that they're totally different. And like when they get the sleep that they really need, they're totally different babies. They're not so miserable. They're living a good life. So I think it's worth it. It still comes with its tears, but it's worth it for you and it's worth it for them. So this is what I did currently and it worked out for me and I hope this helps somebody.